So I'm Christy, the Director of Civic Health Initiatives at the Center for the Future of Arizona. So excited to have the chance to share a little bit about our work today. For those of you who aren't familiar with our organization, the Center is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We're affiliated with ASU, and we really have this vision of building a brighter, stronger future for our state. So we do that in a few key areas. We listen to Arizonans first to understand what are our shared values, our shared concerns, and hopes for the state. We focus on bringing trusted data to then understand how we're doing on those issues. And then ultimately, we really work with partners to bring new tools and practices and approaches to really drive action on those key issues. This work has really been guided by something we call the Arizona We Want, which is really this shared vision of success for the future of the state. It's been developed through an extensive process of surveys and focus groups and community conversations across the state to really understand what are the issues that matter most to us as Arizonans and what are those shared values for the future. The project was launched initially through a partnership with the Gallup organization to do a statewide poll in 2009, the first of its kind, to really ask Arizonans in a rigorous scientific way, what are those shared issues and values. We're really excited. We've actually just launched a 2020 Gallup poll, completed that, and we'll be sharing out that information on the Arizona We Want today on April 21st, and really bringing new life and data and kind of discussion to that vision. But over time, in addition to understanding what these key shared values and shared concerns were, we understood that we needed to know how we're doing on those issues. So the center, in partnership with many organizations, has developed what we call the Arizona Progress Meters that really provide that long-term tracking and benchmarking of how are we doing in any one of these really critical issues for the state. The data is publicly available and curated based on these key milestones and benchmarks. It needed to be information that could be easily understood and widely shared, and most importantly, really serve as a guidepost for decision making. So our goal is to really use that data to frame discussions and to prompt questions to spotlight where there are opportunities for action. So two of those key pillars that are critical to Arizonans and that we've heard time and time again are really essential to our well-being, both through evidence and research and also through conversation with Arizonans, are civic participation and connected communities, which for us make up this broader idea of civic health. So we've come to understand and kind of define that as how we come together to really understand, to define and address shared public problems. So just like we're serious about measuring how we're doing in jobs and education and health, we're really serious about tracking and understanding how are we doing in civic health? What does the state of civic life in Arizona look like today? So we've partnered with a national partner called the National Conference on Citizenship to really bring data to take a look at this wide set of indicators of civic and community life. So this gives you just a snapshot of the progress meter indicators that we use. If you're interested, our website has all of this and a deeper dive into demographic subgroups as well that you can kind of poke through and build graphs and charts. But just to give you a feel for some of this information, we're looking at voter participation, registration, and turnout as key measures of civic participation, but also how are Arizonans using their voice to really express their values. So are they engaged in advocacy, reaching out to elected officials? Do they use purchasing power? You know, are we boycotting or boycotting based on our values? Are we discussing politics frequently with family and friends, with our neighbors, community members? So what are the ways that we develop kind of our civic skills and expression of our values? And then in connected communities, we're also really interested in the more informal measures of civic life. So how are we engaged in volunteerism, in community groups and organizations, in our neighborhoods? Are we spending time with our neighbors? Are we working together to solve local problems? So this gives you a feel for kind of the overall measures of civic life. And just to touch on a couple of data points and what we're learning for Arizona through this effort. Here you can see our midterm turnout, looking at a comparison from 2014 to 2018. So significant increase of our registered voters turning out. And we know in the 2020 presidential election, we had about 80% of our registered voters. So really encouraging trends going up there. Of course, if you look at the turnout of eligible voters, that's a smaller subset. But this data here has really been pivotal for our work, looking at why non-voters do not participate. So through a survey after the election in November, through the Census Current Population Survey, we're able to get a really rich sample size of those who do not vote, why that is. And one of the primary drivers that we hear through that data is believing that their vote wouldn't matter, that their vote wouldn't make a difference. So in 2016, coming off of that presidential election, we had a higher number of Arizonans who responded that way than national average. But by 2018 had actually cut that down quite a bit, and we're underneath the national average. So it would be interesting to see coming off of the 2020 presidential election, we'll get that data in the next few months and see if that trend has continued or whether that continues to be a driver of potential voters, on the sidelines. And then for connected communities, we have some interesting data, kind of an asset and a challenge. We know for Arizona that we're higher than the national average in helping family and friends. So this is frequently, which means a few times a week, so very frequently. Even when you look at kind of sporadically, Arizona has a bright spot there of that connection and support and social network. But in terms of spending time with neighbors, that continues to be a challenge. Our most recent data shows the same, that Arizona is ranked last for that and well below the national average. So again, using the data to sort of showcase and spotlight where do we have assets and opportunities, where there are challenges, and then what do we do as a community to respond to some of that. So to give you just a couple of examples of how we've really used this data as an organization, one key area for us has been really looking at that information about non-voters feeling their vote wouldn't matter. And we also have looked at all of the really strong correlation between age and education and a number of civic engagement measures. And that's prompted for us to really get engaged with this work called participatory budgeting in schools. So this began as a pilot with Phoenix Union High School District here in Arizona, the first ever actually in a school setting, with a national nonprofit called the Participatory Budgeting Project, who've done amazing work. Phoenix Union has taken this district-wide. At the center, we've really focused on how do we bring this to more and more school districts, more and more students to really engage in this process, where students get to decide how to spend a portion of the school district's budget to improve their campuses. So they go through an idea collection process, they deliberate about the pros and cons of these projects, they have to develop detailed project proposals within parameters of how to spend those funds. And ultimately they have a campus-wide vote. So they get to decide as a school community, how are we going to spend these dollars? Students get to mirror an actual election. And through that, if they're at the high school level and they're eligible, they can then register to vote for the next Arizona election. So through that process, I've been able to register 4,500 new voters for Arizona. And all of this work and this focus as an organization on how do we bring this to scale and bring it to more students really stems from that understanding that the key driver there, is agency, is self-efficacy, understanding of your role and your voice in community, while also working with leaders who are responsive and working within a system that's really collaborative and creating space for that shared decision making. So one example for us of how the data has really driven our work as an organization. And then the other kind of key piece that I'll close with is we are so excited. We've just launched a new partnership with the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership at the Flynn Foundation to really come together and say, we have all this rich data and information about civic life in Arizona today. How do we bring people together around that information and really use that to catalyze action? So we have launched a new partnership. We've brought together a steering committee of really wonderful leaders in civic education and civic leadership, community engagement, to say, what questions does this data prompt? It always prompts more questions than it can answer. But how do we use this to really then bring more public discussion around the importance of civic life and civic engagement to our communities? And then how do we use it to really identify, are there opportunities for action, for greater collaboration, Are there opportunities for different decision making? How do we create the conditions in Arizona where more and more civic engagement can thrive? So that is new work that we're really excited about to be doing in partnership with others, and to be bringing more and more of you all and partners at ASU into that collaboration as well. So with that, I will stop. I know we'll have a chance for questions at the end of all the presentations, but thanks for the chance to share a little bit about our work today.